Good morning. Happy to be here at the conference again this year. And I did prepare a really quick presentation. My name's Sally Kite. I'm a contracting officer for the 772nd Enterprise Sourcing Squadron here in San Antonio. We fall under the Air Force Installation Contracting Center in Wright-Patterson. And our unit's primary focus is to set up enterprise tools for other Air Force contracting units to utilize. We do some execution ourselves, procurement of construction, but we do a very limited number of projects each year. And those projects are focused around civil engineering competencies. So we do quite a few runway, taxiway, we do a couple weird projects like the renovation of the cadet chapel at the Air Force Academy. Now, the training that I developed for this conference is really kind of rudimentary, and it may be far too beginning phase to be too useful. So I kind of thought we'll kind of go through it really quickly, and then we can just talk about any questions if anyone has any questions. So the federal contracting, getting your foot in the door, big challenge for all businesses, because federal contracting can be kind of a daunting process. There's a lot more paperwork, a lot more responsibility rules. So I'll just go ahead and get started. Of course, this is kind of the rudimentary, and this is why I said your Maestro Center probably has helped you a lot, and any small business administration. A lot of the other folks really help businesses a lot with these really beginning steps, which is to get your NAICS code. And this is sort of like a short list of what I would recommend if you were looking to do construction for the federal government as your beginning steps. So first of all, you need to figure out what your NAICS code is. I've included links in the slides. I think that everyone should have access to them. And you really have to you can have more than one NAICS code for your firm. And you need to go through, and if you have a bunch of them, then you select a bunch of them in your registration, so that when someone looks under that NAICS code, your firm will come up as someone who is, or as a firm that's interested in doing work under that NAICS code. It's also good for if a I don't know how often the general contractors, would probably be a good question for them, how often they might go into the FedBizSam and look at what subcontractors are out there for subcontracting opportunities. Obtain a DUNS number. This is a simple process as well. From my understand, you go on there, you fill out the form, the DUNS number follows you throughout your life cycle. So it's really, and you have to have these items to do any business with the federal government. Register in the system for award management. Once again, another must do in order to be a federal contractor. Of course, I know that the Maestro Conference had a few talks on sureties and getting yourself squared away for insurance, and and having to be able to have it underwriting for payment and performance bonds. Most projects that are over a certain value have to be bonded if they're with the federal government. So it's really important that if you want those projects at that value, that your firm can get those bonds, so that you can submit bid bonds with your proposal if they're required, and payment performance bonds. Of course, this is another important thing, is the determination what your firm qualifies for in certifications. Include a couple websites here that you can go and look for what those different exceptions, certifications might be. Now, the Air Force, I would say some of the hardest ones in goals to meet are these our hub zone. So if you are brand new in the construction business and you are looking at where to place your office and hire your employees, if you can put yourself in a hub zone, that is a really hard goal, in my opinion, for the Air Force to meet consistently. So I recommend you look at that. And I think, once again, hub zones are historically underutilized business zones. There are several in San Antonio. And then I think you have to, once you put your business there, you also have to hire a certain number of personnel and so forth from that area, which is the purpose of the hub zone, is to revitalize these underutilized business zones. And search for federal business opportunities. Beta SAM is your window to all projects over 25,000 within the federal government. And we're required under FAR Part 6 to advertise these. So, and once you get in there and you start looking, you'll be able to see what's available. And what I will say is that the one thing to remember is that if you are trying to get to do business with an agency that uses a lot of MATOCs, these are IDIQ contracts, then you will not see those advertised except for the solicitation of the very basic contract. Because once the IDIQ contract is awarded, that we've taken care of that synopsis, the synopsizing of the project in the, sorry, I have a little bit of allergies today. We've taken care of the synopsizing of that project with the basic contract. And so you really need to get in on those basic contracts if you want to be a prime contractor. Now, our agency, the 772nd, as I told you, we do MATOCs for the Air Force, and our MATOCs have what's called decentralized ordering. Anybody in an Air Force contracting unit across the United States and OCONUS that's supporting an Air Force mission, Air Force project, can order off of our contracts. That is why it's called enterprise contract, because our purpose was to set up vehicles to save our mission partners and the field contracting offices time, without having to go out and do a full source selection for every requirement. So, for example, right now we have all of our main project MATOC is called the Regional Engineering and Construction Contract. That contract expires in, I want to say, 2024, 2025. All of the regions under it, all the awards were small business set aside when it was awarded back in I think it was around 2019. Anyway, so once these are in place, of course, it kind of reduces your opportunities unless you're interested in subcontracting opportunities. And I'll talk a little bit about how you might try to look for subcontracting opportunities a little further. Of course, another key element is to make sure that you have become really familiar with the federal acquisition regulation, the Defense Federal Acquisition Supplement, and I just threw out a few of the areas that I think that would be very, very useful if you're trying to get into federal contracting, so that you can start understanding. As I said, we have a lot more. I feel like we have a lot more rules, of course, and paperwork. So I think that is one of the big challenges of doing work for the federal government. A great thing for your firm to be able to do would be to either get mentored. There's a lot of mentor protege programs through the Small Business Administration. Get mentored by a firm that's been doing business with the federal government, because they can really help you show you the ropes. You could also try to find contract specialists, 1102s, who have gotten out. You know, we typically, that is our contract specialists, our Air Force enlisted personnel, and eventually they get out, right? And they're looking for jobs, they're looking for opportunities. They're a great source for you to understand how your contract would be administered by the federal government. If you can keep an eye out for those veterans looking for those job opportunities. But basically, these are, just like I said, a few parts of the FAR. You know, it's a gigantic book. And I probably shouldn't say this, but there is a website called I think it's NASH, and NASH is also a great source for trying to figure out what to do when you run into different problems on federal contracts. I'll tell you, the government uses them a lot. They were written by some personnel from George Washington University. They have a lot of stuff about different site conditions, almost any topic in the federal contracting realm. I think you can find things in that website. I'll try to find the link for it later. It does require a subscription, so I'm not advertising for them, but I do think it's a great source or resource for federal contracting officers and for federal contractors. And here, so we have I have a small thing on here on subcontracting opportunities. So once again, if your firm maybe doesn't have the bonding capability, or maybe you're very specialized, and the federal government likes to do a wholesale project. So if we're doing a renovation of a facility, it's going to be a multidiscipline project. And they're going to be looking for people to do the flooring. They're going to be looking for painters. They're going to be looking for people to do the drywall. They're going to be looking for all these different pieces of it. And if your firm only specializes in a particular piece, like site excavation, putting in electrical, so forth, then, you know, maybe you're not interested in being a general or a prime contractor. I would say most prime contractors do kind of grow out of being a subcontractor. Maybe they're largely were a mechanical subcontractor, and they've grown and become a prime contractor. So, but they still, most of our prime contractors, as you know, they all subcontract out any areas that are not really their specialty. And it also kind of reduces the paperwork that you might have to deal with because you're in a subcontracting role. You'll still have a lot of flow down clauses. Understand, you know, one of the easy parts of being an Air Force contracting officer versus I previously was a senior subcontracts administrator for a firm in San Antonio. And I never realized how much work it is to negotiate subcontracts until I was on the commercial side for a couple of years. Us COs, I mean, we're kind of spoiled. I know that. We're like, here's the FAR, here's the clauses, it shall be. As a subcontractor, understand that you really can't negotiate out of federal clauses. They are mandatory. They will flow down to you. You do have to learn to do payrolls. You do have to learn to, you know, how all of those different EEO, all those different rules, overtime, safety, all of that works. So that, once again, you really need to look at that part of the federal acquisition regulation so you understand what would be applicable to you. But if you're interested in subcontracting, so one thing I say is, you know, this is a great event. I would tell you to get involved with SAME events if you get a chance. The SAME events, they have them all over. They have them in San Antonio. They have an annual one every year. And there are a ton of government, there will be representatives from everyone in government contracting generally at SAME events. And there usually are a lot of representatives from big general contractors as well. It is a great way to meet general contractors and find out about those subcontracting opportunities. I also say follow opportunities on BETA SAM. Now, you may see a project out there and you say, oh, well, this is out of my range, it's too big, but you may be able to get the bidders list. You may be able to ask the CO for the bidders list, so that you can maybe put in bids to prime contractors. For the federal government, or for some of the projects that we do, like I told you, we probably only do about 25 construction projects, new construction projects a year as 772. For some of those projects, if I really am worried about, or if I'm really, because I know I have hired a prime contractor from, let's just say, the East region, I will sometimes I will try to encourage my COs, if it's a large project, to do what's called a special notice on FedBizSam. And it'll just say subcontracting opportunities. On that list, we'll tell you what the scope of the work is, and we'll give you a list of all of our prime MATOC contractors and how you can get to, how you can contact them. Because I found that sometimes that it's just something that we can do to help our MATOC contractors, and hopefully get better competition at the subcontracting level for a project that's in a certain location. Because obviously local contractors are more cost competitive than someone coming in and having to pay everybody per diem and find housing for them and so forth. So you know, if you can utilize those local contractors or subcontractors for any projects at certain Air Force bases, you know, it's just, you're going to be very competitive, and competition is what it's all about for the government, for pricing. We want we want competition. Also notice that defense.gov, all contracts valued at over $7.5 million have to be announced through a congressional notification. All of these are listed on this on the defense.gov newsroom, and that notice will say, really, it doesn't give a lot of information, but it tells you what they were awarded. So for example, if somebody got an IDIQ contract, or we awarded a new REC contract, a new worldwide engineering contract, it will tell you that, hey, we've awarded this. This is the ceiling value, this is the ordering period, and here is all the contractors who received an award under the contract. So any of those big MATOCs that are announced, and this is a Department of Defense requirement, I believe, and I think everyone has to do this. So it's another great way for you to maybe look out there and see. I don't know how searchable it is, but it's just something I would suggest you look at if you're looking at subcontracting opportunities. And of course, you know, if you have qualified for certain status like 8A, HUBZONE, veteran-owned small business, service-disabled veteran-owned small business, another hard one for the government to meet their goals on. Make sure that you have a good relationship with the SBA. Make sure that you go to some of the major procurement agencies, such as the VA. I think you have someone from from VIA on this conference. You know, develop those relationships, or at least know if they let you get pre-qualified or verified. You've got to explore a lot of opportunities to just throw that net out there really wide. And of course, you need to market your firm to the right contacts. You know, if you know who your prospective government contract customers are, you need to research the requirements. Once again, you need to familiarize yourself with the regulations and strategies. And one thing I would remind folks are that when you're talking to government procurement professionals, you know, we have to give, basically call it equal access, equal information. So we can't just share an opportunity with one firm or two firms. So you'll find COs sometimes a little difficult to talk to. And I think it's because they're afraid that, hey, I've got to make sure I treat everyone fairly. The other note, I don't know how often government COs say this, and maybe it's just more of my opinion, is that we're not typically the owners of a requirement. So if I have a firm that comes in and says, hey, I'm interested, I think you should set this project aside as an 8A, understand typically that decision's made far before it's sometimes those decisions are, you know, that requirement and so forth is coming from a base contracting unit. It's coming from an engineering unit out at Nellis Air Force Base, for example. So you need to make sure that you're marketing yourself to make sure you develop relationships with the DBOs, that Deputy Business Operations, most of them are small business representatives at individual base level contracting squadrons. If the base civil engineering office has someone who is willing to have a discussion, have meetings, like I said, they have to be fair. Everyone in the government has to be fair because we're dealing with taxpayers' money. So we have to make sure that everyone has basically equal opportunity, fair opportunity to be considered for any requirements. And I think that's all I have for slides. So it's been really, if anybody have any questions. Leslie, were you able to hear me okay? It's really quiet.
Yes, we were. And so we're checking right now on the HUVA app for any questions.
Okay.
And if you have your questions, you're able to put them in the chat that's on the screen so we can see them directly.
Do you need me to stop sharing?
I'm sorry?
Do you need me to stop sharing for that to happen, or?
Oh, no, they're able to do it. We have someone who said, thanks for your presentation from James.
And if there aren't any, well, we can wait here for a few more minutes in case anyone has any questions. If anyone has a question later, I did set up I did set up a profile on the HUVA app. So if you're just not comfortable doing it in this type of environment, I know some people are like, I don't want to ask a question in front of other people. Just send it to me. I'm happy to try to answer any questions.
And Sally, what we're also going to do is create a topic under the community section of HUVA. And so the topic will be federal contracting. And so you can also put your questions there. And actually, we're getting some questions. Do you need a DUNS number for federal contracts?
Yes. Yes. So there are some projects that are, for example, let's say we wanted to do a project and it was like right now, I've spent the whole last week doing something called Con IT training. And the two things that you have to have for a contracting officer to award you a contract is a DUNS number and a cage code. You got to have those. And I can't tell you how hard the process is. That would be something for one of your existing construction firms probably could share their experience with going through the DUNS number if it's really difficult or it's a lot of information. They make it look simple.
Is there a good tutorial for searching BETA-SAM? I keep getting search results in the 10,000s.
I think I thought there were filters on BETA-SAM. I think I can look some more at it and see if I can maybe respond that to in the community, if you can filter it by value. Once again, as a CO, I don't get to search for opportunities very often. So
what's a cage number or cage code? I'm sorry.
A cage code is a 5-digit code that you're assigned when you do your, I think it comes out of your SAM registration, and it's a 5-digit code, alphanumeric, And it's sort of like it's very similar to your DUNS number. Now, some firms have multiple cage codes because maybe if they're a really large firm, they might have a construction division. They might have a, let's just say they have different divisions that do different types of federal work. And so they often have different cage codes for each of their divisions. Most firms have one unique cage code.
The events for SAMs, where do I find the schedule for those?
I would just Google the SAME. It stands for San Antonio. I think it stands for San Antonio SAMI. I always call it SAMI. I don't know. Something military engineers. I would Google SAMI events in Google, and you will find a lot of information. It's an organization that you can be a member of. Like I said, where they have conferences, those conferences are the ones as a CO for construction, those are the ones I go to the most often because it's what I do, right? I don't, some small business events, I don't want to go to them because of the fact that I have no need to buy custodial services. I don't need to buy gloves. So, if you find events that are around you'll see a lot of Corps of Engineers, huge Corps of Engineer presence at SAME events. I mean, I think they send like entire brigades or something, whatever they call them in the Army, but it's very, very focused on architect, engineering, and construction. So it's really one that, that's the one I'd say that I attend the most because of the fact it's centered around what my flight is. That's all we do is engineering and construction.
And the last question we have is, how do we get the contracts below 25K?
How do you get them?
How do we get the contracts below?
The ones that aren't advertised is what you're saying. Once again, you've got to probably market, you've got to market yourself to where those local contracting offices, they all have almost every contracting squadron has a small business director. That's sometimes often co-captained by the deputy of business operations. Those are the two individuals that you're going to try to get a, hey, can I give you a capability briefing? I know the Air Force Civil Engineering Squadron also takes capability briefings. They have a office but like I said, those projects are not going to be your less than 25,000 projects. You're looking more at the base level. You want to look for opportunities to be on SABRE contracts. SABRE contracts are really that lowest IDIQ contract for small projects. The SABRE is the simplified acquisition vehicle for almost every base has a SABRE contract, and the SABRE contract is for those small construction projects.
Okay, and one more question. Are you a mentor, Sally? How do I get involved with the mentoring?
I'm not a mentor. When I said mentoring, the Small Business Administration has programs for mentor protege programs, and you can probably go to their website to learn more about those. So when I say get a mentor, let's say you reach out to those contractors that you respect and that hey, SUNT does great work, or so-and-so does great work. I really admire them. Try to reach out to them and see if they have a mentor protege program, because many of the big contractors do have these programs, and I think that they're interested in helping small businesses. It also gives them subcontractors that if they train them, it just increases their ability to respond quickly to their federal contractors or federal government contracts.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Sally, for this session. We did record it, and so at the end of the day, we will be uploading all of the recordings to the Whova app. You will have access to them for up to 3 months. We'll also be creating the topic under our community section so that you can ask any more questions that you have and engage with others about questions and just feedback on the session. So with that, this concludes the session. Sally, thank you so much for volunteering your time and your expertise. We're so grateful that you have chosen to give back to San Antonio. That's how we all get better. So thank you so much.
No, thank you. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you, you too. And we'll see you all at the next session. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.